Hey, welcome. So think about a big factory. Some of the most important things it needs don't show up on a truck. We're talking about stuff like electricity, water, and gas. They just flow in all the time. So how in the world do you buy something that never ever stops? Okay, let's dive into this really slick solution in SAP called pipeline procurement.
All right, so here's the big problem. You can't just have electricity show up at your loading dock, right? You can't count it, you can't stick it on a shelf in a warehouse like you would with a bunch of nuts and bolts. These resources are different. They flow straight from the grid right into your factory 24/7. So yeah, the old school way of buying things just completely falls apart here.
I mean, can you just imagine trying to use the standard rules here? Picture walking up to your procurement department and saying, hey, I'm going to need a purchase order for the next 1,000,000 gallons of water we're about to use. It sounds completely ridiculous, right? Because it is. The whole paper-based system just wasn't designed for this kind of constant flow.
And this slide just nails exactly why. For these pipeline materials, purchase requisitions and purchase orders are totally out of the picture. They're completely bypassed. I mean, think about it. By the time you got a PO approved, your factory would have already used thousands of dollars worth of that resource. The trigger for buying it can't be a piece of paper. It has to be the actual act of using it. So this really forces us into a whole new way of thinking. We have to shift our brains away from buying things in separate, neat little batches and move towards managing a constant, nonstop stream. And that, right there, is the heart of SAP's pipeline procurement process. It's a total game changer.
This table lays it out perfectly. You know, with standard goods, you've got all this paperwork and storage. But with pipeline goods, poof, all of that just vanishes. The whole process is continuous, it goes straight to consumption, and here's the best part, it's automated. It gets kicked off by what you actually use, not by someone filling out a form.
So you're probably wondering, how do we actually make this happen? Well, first, we have to build ourselves a digital pipeline. And it all begins with setting up the master data the right way. Getting this part right up front is what makes all the cool automations possible down the road.
Step one is super simple. You just have to tell the system what exactly is flowing through this digital pipe. Is it water? Natural gas? You create a material master record like you normally would, but you give it a special material type, pipe. That's the signal to SAP to handle this thing with its special continuous flow logic.
Okay.
Next up, you gotta tell the system where this stuff is coming from. You know, your utility partner, your vendor. And what's awesome here is that there's nothing special you have to do. You just set up a regular old vendor master record for the power company or the water company. It's that simple.
Now, this next piece is absolutely crucial. Think of this step as putting the financial valve, or maybe even the cash register, on our digital pipe. The Pipeline Info Record, or PIR, is where you lock in the price. How much for a kilowatt hour of electricity? How much for a gallon of water? This pricing agreement is the secret sauce that lets the system automatically figure out the bill later, all without ever needing a PO.
All right, our digital pipe is built, the pricing is set, now it's time for the really fun part. Let's open the valve and see how the system handles this continuous flow in the day-to-day, all on its own.
So the factory flips the switch and starts using electricity. Now in SAP, we don't do a goods receipt, because remember, we didn't receive anything into a warehouse. Instead, we post a goods issue. This is basically the system's way of saying, hey, we just used this much electricity from the pipeline and we're charging that cost to this specific department. And here, this is where the magic really happens. At the end of the month or week, the system runs something called Evaluated Receipt Settlement, or ERS. It's so cool. It just takes the total amount we consumed, multiplies it by that price we set up in the info record, and bam. The system automatically calculates exactly what we owe the utility company. No invoice needed from them. At all.
And the final step just closes the loop perfectly. The amount the system calculated gets passed straight over to the finance department's accounts. And from there, the payment is sent to the vendor, automatically. The whole thing is balanced, the physical flow of the resource in and the financial flow of money out. It's beautiful.
So let's just zoom out for a second and take a look at the whole shebang. When you put all these pieces together, you really see how all that initial setup work pays off, creating this incredibly smooth, hands-off execution phase. This chart is the perfect wrap-up. Look, over here on the left, you've got your one-time setup. You make the material, the vendor, and that all-important pricing record. Once you've done that, you cross this line and you're in the automated loop on the right. You consume it, the system settles it, and the system pays for it. It's just an elegant, paperless, and crazy efficient way to work. You know, This whole idea is so much bigger than just paying your electric bill. It's a whole different way to think about automation. It really leaves you with a great question to chew on. If you can build a digital pipeline for something as invisible as electricity, what other continuous, messy processes in your world are just waiting for a pipeline of their own?